From the great state of Virginia, fifth-term Congressman Eric Cantor. Good morning, Congressman Cantor.
Thomas, good morning. Good to be back with you.
How are you?
We're doing great. We're doing great. Anytime we can wake up in the morning with Thomas, it's a good day.
I would like to apologize for saying that you probably got your talking points from Fugly Frank Luntz for your appearance on the program. I know that's not true, so is it?
Frank Luntz is a good man.
Yes,
He's a good man.
So this BP oil disaster, give me a view of everything that's gone on.
Well, I think one thing I missed, I know that Senator Dodd was on your show recently blaming President Bush for all of this. I can tell you one thing, it's not President Bush's fault, but really, I mean, it is a tragedy. I was actually in New Orleans last weekend, and folks there are very concerned. It's almost like they don't get a break in New Orleans. And I think what the governor right now is asking for, what Congressman Steve Scalise has here been asking for, is to stop the blame game. Let's all try and be constructive here and help stop this leak. There's plenty of time to assess blame. There's plenty of time for the finger pointing. But really, right now, there is not only an environmental disaster that is occurring, there is a huge economic disaster that may be happening.
No, I think Senator Dodd, old friend of mine, and unfortunately he's wrong about almost everything, but then, of course, so are you. However, I think...
Wait a minute, what are you talking about?
But I think he was right in that. I think his point was that under Cheney, with his connection to Halliburton and the Bush administration, and the same for the Obama administration, by the way, and we don't know, we're not clear yet on what their ties to big oil are, but they've got to be substantial. I think Dodd's point was that all these sweetheart deals with regulations and all that, and all the slack that they cut BP and these other oil companies, was what he was talking about. But then he was also trying to blame, what I was talking about was the administration's response to what's happened. And you're right. I mean, we do have plenty of time to, assess the role that President Bush and Cheney, and also the role that President Obama played in all of this. Regarding regulations and all that stuff, and the supervision of these various oil companies. But what do we do now?
Well, right now everybody should be moving in the same direction. As you know, this is huge. I heard that James Carville and Mary Madeline were on TV yesterday, and Mary Madeline had held up a plastic bag saying, this is not cooking oil. We have a problem here. The marshes now are being inundated with oil, killing life. And I'm told that a huge percentage of seafood for this country comes from the Gulf. That is the lifeblood of the communities along the Gulf and the marshes of Louisiana. We all ought to be pushing in the same direction, encouraging anything we can do to stop this gushing of oil.
So are you suggesting then, and it's a dumb question, but that the administration is not doing everything they can?
Well, I mean, if you listen to Congressman Steve Scalise from New Orleans, he has, for days and days on end now, asked, along with Governor Jindal, for the administration to provide what is needed to, number one, produce a barrier so we can hopefully stop the oil from inundating the marshes, and at the same time stop the finger pointing, the blame game. How is that helpful right now to go and lambast anyone? We got to go in and plug that hole.
Well, it's always, I would suggest, Congressman, that it always makes one feel good to blame other people for stuff. So I agree with you. Right. It's pointless at this point. We should be trying to solve the problem. But, just as an aside, it's just always fun to, particularly if it's somebody in the opposition party, to blame them for everything, So.
Well, listen, but this is so grave. Again, having been in New Orleans last weekend, this is serious stuff. It's not, feeling good, blaming people is not what we need to do right now. This is serious. After what New Orleans has been through after Katrina, and now this, we ought to be focusing on trying to stop this disaster from occurring.
What you were just talking about, Charles was talking about earlier, about allowing the folks in Louisiana to erect these barriers on the barrier reefs there and so on. Why? Well, who do they have to? Who's refusing to let them do that?
Well, apparently the agencies here in Washington under the Obama administration have not responded to the request by Louisiana, by its delegation here in Washington, and certainly the governor in Baton Rouge. Again, this is not time to dilly-dally. We ought to be there. We ought to be helping facilitate in any way we can. And there's a tremendous amount of frustration because there's really been no flow of communication. There's been no answer given as to why Louisiana is not getting what it's asking for from the federal government. They've got to approve the plan that has been put in place and requested by Governor Jindal and have been unwilling to do so. Again, not casting blame, let's just get it done.
19 till the hour, talking with Congressman Eric Cantor from Virginia here on the I'm This Morning program. The other day I had this guy they call Dr. Doom. What's his first name, Bernie?
Nuriel
Rabini, teaches at NYU, wrote the book Crisis Economics. And he's most famous for predicting back in 2006, I guess, and perhaps before, the current economic crisis. And he's saying that the worst may be yet to come. What are your thoughts?
Well, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not. But listen,
we
have got unprecedented challenges right now. And if you look at the policies that have been promoted over the last 18 months, they have one thing in common. It is about spending money we don't have. It is about incurring debt because of that. And the prospects for higher taxes, higher interest rates are real. And so I'm worried that the country is at a critical crossroads, and that if we don't do something to change those making decisions here in Washington, we're going to find ourselves like Greece, much quicker than anybody can even expect now or predict. So I'm worried. I'm certainly worried on this.
The thing I don't understand, without getting into the minutia of it that makes everybody's toenails ache and their hair hurt, but I don't understand how we're going trillions of dollars in debt, and at some point, somebody or somehow or somewhere, that money's going to have to be paid back to somebody. Well, explain that to me.
That's exactly right. And really, if you look at it right now, there's a federal government just inhaling cash it doesn't have, meaning going out onto the markets, borrowing money. And when that happens, there's less money for small businesses to have access to that money to just keep the lights on, not even grow payrolls. And so ultimately then the sucking sound in Washington gets that much louder, and everyone ends up having to pay for it at some point. I mean, you just look and see what happened with the stimulus money a year and a half ago. I'll tell you, my state of Virginia, the legislature last year and the governor they welcomed the $3 billion in stimulus money that came into the state's coffers so they could fill the budget hole. Well, you know what happened this year? All the cuts that should have been made last year were made this year, but yet we were left with the $3 billion of debt attributable to Virginia's share, now payable by all. So again, we got to back up. If we break this down, this question down, families and businesses know what it's like to incur debt, to max their credit cards out. They got to end up paying for it sometime. And that's really what the kind of decisions we need to be making here in Washington. We got to start cutting. We got to start cutting the deficit. And we just launched a program called YouCut. And YouCut is a program that allows people to go online. All you have to do is Google the words YouCut, Y-O-U-C-U-T, and they can vote for their favorite way to cut the budget. There's 5 options every week. The winner is tallied, and we bring it to a vote on the House floor. Today's vote on the House floor under YouCut is going to be about eliminating the pay raise for non-military federal employees. Now, you know what? That's common sense right now. While people in the private sector are sitting there not having any pay raise, having pay cuts, or not having a job at all, and we're expecting a pay raise here in Washington? No, absolutely not. That's why I would encourage all your listeners and viewers to go on and vote on YouCut. Google YouCut, vote today. We'll have a contest every week and ask voters to give their opinions so we can bring finally some sense here in Washington to changing the culture and beginning to cut so we don't lay on this debt onto our kids.
Kind of like an American Idol deal, huh?
Well, listen, I mean, it's working. You know, that's the thing. It is working because we're seeing now that cutting the budget is not a partisan issue. We should be joined by all, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. And if people will go online, Google YouCut, and vote, we have over 500,000 votes cast on this thing. So the public gets it. Let's change the culture before it's too late.
I forget what I was thinking about. I was trying to shoot myself while you were talking. It's just making me crazy.
What?
You know, I was talking to Matt Taibbi. Well, you know, the last time the budget was balanced in this country was, I know you're going to hate this, but it was during the Clinton administration, wasn't it?
You know, I think that certainly during the Bush administration, there were some years in which we had surplus early on, but then 9/11 hit. And remember, the economy took a huge hit. And listen, none of us come to the table with clean hands here. I think Republicans get that, Amos. But right now, again, instead of saying you did badly, we are not doing as badly, time for that to end. We've got to start cutting the budget.
No, I understand all that. And my point was that I didn't see, even with this YouCut deal, I just don't see in the next 1,000 years how we ever balance the budget in this country again.
You know what? We got to start. We got to start somewhere, Amos.
I agree.
I mean, these couple $1 billion a year is not chump change here. We have got to start somewhere, and if the people will speak out and go online to YouCut, their voices may be heard by Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer to say, you know what, let's start bringing a spending cut to the floor. I can't even recall a time in which we have ever voted this Congress on a spending cut. That's the problem. It continues to spiral out of control here in Washington.
I have about a minute left, and then mercifully we'll let you go. But you and old Issa and others have got your hair on fire over this Sustack deal. Is that the deal? If the White House offered him a job, get him out of that Pennsylvania race?
What is this with hair on fire with you? You know, last time I was on your show, you told me my hair was too long. I went and got a haircut, Amos. So listen, I think, you know, Darrell Issa is right to be focusing on what goes on behind the scenes with this White House in terms of its appointments, in terms of its trying to maneuver in political races. That's a legitimate question to ask, and I think that the American people deserve to know.
And did he drop out of the race or no?
Sustack?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think clearly we see what happened in Pennsylvania now. So,
that's my point. He won. So what do we care?
Well, I mean, what we care is what is the administration, what's the White House doing, trying to go and, allegedly go and offer a something to encourage somebody to get out of the race. I mean, this is official. These are official duties. These are official acts being conducted at the White House to try and achieve. Well, you know what? I let the American people decide, Amos. I don't know if they'd all agree with you.
They probably don't, and I'm kidding. All right, Congressman. Eric Cantor, thank you very much. I appreciate it. 11 till the hour.